Singapore's strength ultimately rested on the ability of the Royal Navy to reinforce in time of crisis. But deprived of the assistance of the French, the British could not spare sufficient ships for operations outside the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. In July 1940, the Chiefs of Staff drew up a long and pessimistic report on the Far East. Not only were Malaya's sea defenses entirely inadequate, her air cover too needed a massive increase, which simply could not be provided. Britain, they concluded, had no option but to play for time. Even if Japan directly threatened British interests by invading Thailand or taking over Indochina from the French, Britain should not declare war. The secret 23-page document was approved by the War Cabinet and sent in the autumn of 1940 to the Commander-in-Chief, Far East. Most wartime mail was sent abroad by ship. A safer alternative for the Chiefs of Staff report would have been the secure telegraph line to Singapore, but only a summary was sent by telegraph. The full report, together with other secret documents, including both naval ciphers and intelligence, was loaded on board the blue funnel steamer Automedon under the command of Captain William Ewan. To defend itself during the long voyage to the Far East, the Automedon had a single small caliber gun. Security precautions on board were also rather rudimentary. The Chiefs of Staff report was carried in a weighted green canvas bag like this one, which, in an emergency, was supposed to be dropped overboard. On the 24th of September 1940, the Automedon set sail from Victoria Dock, Birkenhead, for the Malayan port of Penang.
Sea was a pale blue, and the sun was well up by this time, and the heat was getting terrific. Not a breath of wind anywhere. A beautiful morning in the tropics. Went on deck at 8 o'clock. It was my wheel, so I goes to the wheel. And at about 20 past, we spotted away over the port a big, rather big vessel, which we thought was a Dutchman, because we were near the Dutch East Indies, heading for Penang, and we were off the island of Sumatra, Achin Head, actually. And when we saw this ship coming, the old man, he's walking up and down the poop, up and down the bridge, said to the second mate, who was on his watch, said, I think she's a Dutchman, sir. He said, well, got the glasses, had a look. Well, next minute, a hoist of flags went up on the ship.
Unluckily for the Automedon, she had encountered the most successful German surface raider of the Second World War. Atlantis was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Converted from a freighter and sailing under foreign flags, she had concealed 5.9-inch guns and torpedoes, which made her more than a match for Allied merchantmen. Under the captainship of Bernhard Rogge, she was to complete the longest sea cruise in naval history. By November the 11th, 1940, Atlantis had either captured or sunk 12 Allied ships.
Next minute, bang, over the bow. We had the warning shot. Up went the German battle flag. Oh, that was it. The old man then said to me, hard a starboard. So I put the wheel over hard a starboard, you see. Now that meant the ship's bow went that way and her stern went that way. Next minute we were at right angles to this, which was eventually the raider. We didn't know at the time, we thought she was a Dutchman. Next minute, bang, bang, bang. Because our captain was of the stuff that Nelson's made of, you know, they don't exist anymore, people like this. We'll fight him, you know, and turn this pea shooter towards this chap, which it blows out the water in no time. Three volleys of three each. Bang, 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 bang. And by the time he finished, all this area was gone. All the boats on the boat deck was gone. But round me, the captain, as far as I could see, was blown to bits, virtually. We had two second mates, an auxiliary second mate, as well as the other chap, the main second mate. They were killed.
The attack had lasted just 3 minutes, In that time, Automedon's radio room had managed to get off a brief distress signal before it too had been destroyed. One of the Germans in the boarding party later described the uncanny silence, broken only by the sound of escaping steam from the ship's pipes.
But here in no time, the boarding parties came aboard, right, they had pistols, they had grenades and cutlasses. And they came aboard in the dirks, as they call them in the German Navy, and they came aboard in no time. And they were aboard rifling everywhere. They went right through the ship.
One officer in the German search party had a specific brief: to hunt for secret materials. As Automedon lay in a busy shipping lane, he knew that his time on board was limited. With increasing urgency, he tried to locate the ship's strong room below decks. Inside the strong room, the Germans were amazed to find a hoard of intelligence material. In the 15 bags of secret mail were fleet orders, gunnery instructions, MI6 and naval intelligence reports, and 100-weight of merchant fleet codebooks. But important though these were, it was not to be their most exciting discovery on board the ship. Above decks in the chart room, next door to the shattered bridge, lay the Chiefs of Staff report inside its weighted canvas bag. Too important to be stored in the strong room, it was kept close at hand, ready to be jettisoned in an emergency. The sudden death of the ship's officers had prevented its destruction. Realizing the significance of the secret cargo, Captain Rogger decided to send the documents to Japan for swift and secure transmission to Germany. At 3 p.m., some 7 hours after her capture, Automedon was finally sunk. In Japan, the intelligence was given to the German naval attaché at the Tokyo embassy, Rear Admiral Paul Venneker. On his second tour of duty in the country, he had by now established close contacts with his Japanese counterparts.
Venneker received the Chiefs of Staff document late at night on the 5th of December 1940 and couldn't believe his eyes. He recognized immediately the tremendous significance of this particular document and insisted that he retain a top copy to show to the Japanese. On the 11th of December, he took it to the Japanese naval staff officers, and there the document was read through with great interest. He was then, later in the day, at 6 p.m. on the same day, summoned to meet Vice Admiral Kondo, the Vice Chief of Naval Staff and the effective head of the Naval Staff, who just could not believe his eyes. They both agreed that this particular document was virtually dynamite in their hands.
Venneker kept a war diary, which was released in the German military archives at Freiburg in 1977. In it, he detailed Admiral Kondo's response to the intelligence.
Kondo repeatedly expressed to me how valuable the information contained in the War Cabinet memorandum was for the Navy. Such a significant weakening of the British Empire could not have been identified from outward appearances.
Before the Japanese believed that Britain, the United States, and the Dutch had worked out some kind of integrated defense plan for the defense of the East Indies, having received this document, the Japanese now knew for certain that there was no such plan, that any idea of an effective defense plan on the part of the Allies was pure myth.
For Admiral Yamamoto, Commander-in-Chief of the Imperial Japanese Fleet, the receipt of the Chiefs of Staff report marked a major turning point. The document goes far to explain a crucial change in his policy.
Yamamoto Teitoku 連合艦隊司令長官はそれまで非常に英米連合艦隊に対して 戦争することを大変、躊躇しておりましたけれども、非常に慎重でしたが、この文章を見て彼は非常にその慎重さから変わって非常に安心して、自分の艦隊を全部アメリカ海軍に向けることができるようになったと思います。
From evidence in the correspondence of Admiral Yamamoto, on the 10th of December 1940, there was no hint of a strategic planning exercise involving a radical shift to the Pearl Harbor attack plan. But by about the 18th or 19th of December 1940, it was fully in place. This was not a matter of mere coincidence. It was, I would contend, directly as a result of receiving the British Chiefs of Staff document from the German naval attaché in Tokyo on the morning of the 12th of December 1940.
Yamamoto now felt confident that he could divide his forces for a simultaneous attack on Britain and America. On January the 7th, he wrote to his Navy Minister, Oikawa, that if the United States naval forces were annihilated in a decisive battle, then the miscellaneous enemy forces south of the Philippines could not resist our advance effectively. His revised estimate of British capability was incorporated into detailed planning for the attacks on Singapore and Pearl Harbor. The reaction of the British Admiralty to the capture of the Automedon was very curious. It was warned by Singapore on the 30th of December 1940 that according to an intelligence report, the Germans had been seen removing documents from Automedon's safe. The Admiralty quickly realized that the Merchant Navy Code carried in Automedon's strongroom must be compromised. 4 days later, on the 3rd of January 1941, it ordered all British merchant vessels to collect new codes as soon as possible. But the Admiralty Board, which sat around this table, was never told of the possibility that the Germans had captured documents, not merely from the Automedon's strongroom, but from the chart room as well. And the documents in the chart room included the vitally important Chiefs of Staff report on the defense of the Far East. It seems never to have occurred to the Admiralty that the British assessment of the Japanese threat was now in the hands of the Japanese themselves. In February 1942, Singapore fell to the Japanese. Its loss was the largest capitulation in British history. It involved the surrender of 130,000 troops. It brought to an end British naval supremacy in the Eastern Seas, and it did irreparable damage to the prestige of the British Empire. During the Second World War, the Emperor of Japan presented only 3 Germans with samurai swords in recognition of their achievements. One went to Hermann Goering, another to Erwin Rommel. The third was given to the master of the surface raider Atlantis, Captain Bernhard Rogger.
Some of the most intriguing questions raised by the Automedon story remain unanswered. Who made the fatal decision to send the documents by sea? And once they were lost, were the Americans told that the Japanese had discovered the weakness of the British in the Far East? Historians looking for the answers to these questions might start with this volume, which is the Foreign Office Papers, Great Britain, for the year 1940, A to E. And looking through the index, we find that, indeed, SS Automedon is here, sinking of loss of FO bag, which is exciting. The file number begins with a Y, which means that it is on the subject of communications. This is a list of all the holdings of Foreign Office files on communications, and they're listed by year, 36, 37, 38, 39, 41. There is no file for 1940, there is no file on Automedon. Now, if you were to ask the staff here what happened to that file, they could tell you simply that it had been weeded, which is a PRO euphemism for taken out and destroyed.